preaching, through the hearing, and through the response to your word. Amen. Starlight, star bright, first star I see tonight. I wish I may, I wish I might have this wish I wish tonight. There's something about stars that have captured the imagination of human beings from the time they gathered around ancient fires, watching the sparks fly up into the darkened sky. Long before there were Kindles and iPods, televisions and movies, before there were electric lights of any kind to illuminate our nights, stars were the only companions for humankind once the sun went down. And so our ancient ancestors would watch and gaze upon those tiny pinpricks of light, looking at them night after night, observing how they would appear to move slowly across the sky. Soon, they began to identify images among the stars in a connect-the-dots kind of way. And they would see images of great warriors, animals, gods, and goddesses. After gazing at the night skies in and out of seasons, these early astronomers began to recognize patterns of movement, predicting the location of the stars according to the time of year. They learned that they could guide their travels by the position of the stars. They began to give names to the most prominent. Those names are still with us today. The planets that we call Mars, Venus, Jupiter, and so on. They assigned the names of these fixed stars, these planets, to the zodiac, the constellations that we know. And they saw a connection between the motions in the heavens and the events here on earth. And that's a practice known as astrology. They would try to make sense of the world around them, making predictions about human events based on what they saw in the skies, looking for signs and portents in the sky. And when they saw something that was out of the ordinary, it got their attention. And so these wise men in Matthew's story, also known as the Magi, from where we get the word magic, were both astronomers and astrologers. They were like early versions of scientists, gazing, making observations, but they were also trying to interpret the meaning of what they observed. And in the year 2 BC, when they saw the star Jupiter, one of the brightest in the sky, pass very close to the star Regulus, known as the King's Star, they knew something amazing had happened among humankind. Today, astronomers can use sophisticated instruments and planetariums to reconstruct what the stars look like at any moment in history, on any given night. And they know that over a period of 8 months in that year, Jupiter passed by Regulus 3 times, seeming to circle it and create a crown. The Magi then observed that Jupiter and Venus, the 2 brightest stars in the sky, become so close to each other that they appeared to fuse into one brilliant, bright, shining star. They knew that this kind of event was unheard of in history. And so they were compelled to follow that star to see where it led them. And that's how they came to be in Bethlehem of Judea. That is where they found this king. They were overjoyed to find this newborn, the child called Jesus. His parents, however, were most likely perplexed by the sudden visit of these strange magi from distant lands. Star or not, imagine how odd, how disconcerting it must have been for Joseph and Mary to open their door and find these foreigners standing on their doorstep. The author Elizabeth Berg, in her book, The Handmaid and the Carpenter, imagines the scene in her book. She describes how Joseph is very suspicious of these strangers with their odd clothes, their foreign language, their strange smells, their different-looking faces and skin tones. And he wants to keep these foreigners away from his home, away from his family. But they insist on giving his newborn son gifts befitting a king. Many of us would have reacted similarly to Joseph. We are taught to be suspicious of strangers. We are told that foreigners are not to be trusted, that they are out to get us or to take what we have. Reams of newspaper pages and scads of blogs are written about why strangers from other lands should not be welcomed, why they should be kept out, and the harm that they are doing to us. We build walls and establish policies, construct entire bureaucracies, and schedule segments on talk shows concerning what to do about the foreigner. And yet this story in Matthew's gospel gives us a simple message. The foreigners have a gift to give. They offer gold, frankincense, and myrrh. But even more importantly, they share important information about Herod's intent to destroy Jesus. With these gifts of knowledge and priceless goods, Joseph is able to escape with his family and keep them safe. The wise men, of course, also receive a gift. Just seeing the Christ child, the one to whom the star pointed as the king. How do you react when you encounter the foreigner, the stranger? How do you respond when you encounter somebody who looks different from you, practices a different religion, has a different skin color, comes from a place far from where you and your family live? Our first tendency is to pull back, to recoil, to put a barrier between us and them. Use derogatory names, tell crude jokes, pass laws against them. We want to protect ourselves from what we are afraid of that we project onto them. You'll notice many stories in the Gospel of Matthew about what it means to encounter the stranger, the one outside your circle. Keep an ear and an eye out for these stories as we read through the Gospel this year, because the people in Matthew's circle were very worried about the wrong people coming in and messing things up. They were very concerned about keeping themselves safe, pure, and protected from outsiders, foreigners, immigrants, strangers. So here in this second chapter, Matthew sets the tone for what it means for humankind that this baby king has been born into the world. Matthew shows us that even the stars in the sky are pointing us to a radical hospitality, to trust in God, who created the planets and the stars circling in their nightly eternal dance, to open ourselves to someone new coming into our circle and bringing us unexpected gifts. I've seen that happen in this congregation. Ever since Garrett Baker led the series this past summer on Our Neighbor's Faith, people have been curious to learn more about those who practice a different religion than us. We've had a Muslim woman, prison chaplain, in her hijab, talking to us about Islam, about the things that are similar and the things that are different. We've had Jewish students and a Jewish professor talk to us about their faith. We had a woman talk to us about Unitarian Universalism. And in the coming months, we'll be visited by people who are Sikh, Buddhist, and perhaps even Hindu. They are different from us, foreigners, outsiders. And yet, the light of Christ shining in this place has drawn them here. And they have shared with me, after each of their visits, how much they appreciated being in this place. The questions, the discussions, the hospitality that they experienced from those they met in this church. They may not worship Christ as we do, but they can certainly see the light of Christ coming through us, opening the way to new understanding, connections, and perhaps even friendship. And I know some of you have received gifts of wisdom from our neighbors of faith that they have offered. One of our members attended the session on Judaism and gratitude and shared with me later how much the presenter's words meant to her. She even wrote them down, and they became like a beacon of light to her, a star guiding her through a dark road in her life. From the heavens, from the point of view of those stars, our differences would not be visible, any more than we can notice distinctions from the planets this far away. Our Earth is simply part of another constellation, a green and blue orb swirled with vaporous clouds. And yet on this planet, God created life and saw fit to enter that life in all its messiness and beauty, all its danger, and all its wonder. Who knows? Maybe some being light years away is wishing upon our star. The light that you radiate as a Christian should be one that shines with peace and hospitality, that simply glows. And as a parishioner shared with me in a quote last evening, your life as a Christian should make non-believers question their disbelief in God. When people encounter you at church, at the dinner table, in the waiting line, at an office, in the car, on the internet, anywhere on this planet, whether you are a stranger traveling or a host welcoming, receive the gifts offered to you with graciousness. And let the light of Christ shine in you and through you, so they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. Amen.
Amen.